Good morning and welcome to America's Home Cooking. Today I'm making one of the simplest egg salads I could possibly make. And matter of fact, when I was growing up, when my girlfriend and I used to go to the movie theater, now remember 50 cents, we could sit there and get into the theater, buy a hamburger, fries, and a Coke with a candy bar and still come out with change. So I'm going way back. Now, it was Main Street, and across the street from the theater they had a leather shop there where they would make cowboy boots, belts and stuff, and if you killed a rattlesnake or something, they could put it on your boots and all and design them up. Really good work there. But about 2 doors down from there, let's see, I think it's going right if you're facing across the street. I can't quite remember. They used to have a Five and Dime store. And in the Five and Dime store, they had a place where you could eat. It was like a little cafeteria. In the city, they don't have this. But it was very simple. You had a bar, you had very few chairs. But in another section, you had cards. There was a section for toys. And in the back, they had material. Well, my girlfriend talked me in with our little bit of change that we had. Remember, we got quarters for our weekly allowance for doing our chores and things. So that can tell you just how the economy was then. And I think it cost a penny to use a paid phone. You know, it was a nickel for an hour or a penny to park the car. They didn't have parallel parking. You had to drive in. In other words, if you're coming from the street, you drove in, and the back part of the car was pointing to the street, and the front was pointing to whatever store you were. Now, if you went to walked 1 block over a block behind the movie theater, you would sit there and cross the street. You would see a old sign. Was a barber shop, and he had, like you see in the westerns, he didn't have concrete and stuff there. He actually had the wood slabs, and you stepped up into it, you know. So, and he even had a section for horses, you know. So there was a lot of going modern and then going back. So there was a lot of that. But anyway, when we went into the Five and Dime, we ordered egg salad sandwiches, and what they gave us was this dish, which I'm going to show you how to make. So I'll go ahead and turn you down. Now I have a dozen eggs here, and I'm going to be chopping them up. So I'm going way back. I told you I've got time in. When you have time in, you can actually see a lot of the things that change. There wasn't as much stress as there is today, and I think people are burning out, and they're being cornered. We have to go backwards some. There's just too much pressure on the family, too much pressure on people. They're just burning out in all directions. People aren't talking because they're on the phone. When I go out, I won't get on my phone. I'll sit there and I'll carry it, and if I have to make a telephone call to pick up a taxi or something, because listen, I drive in Texas, and we've got lead feet in Texas. We drive 85 during the day and 75 at night, and if you want to get to the next town and it's on the horizon, you cannot put around at 30 and 40 miles an hour. You're going 80, 85. Of course, if you see an 18-wheeler hauling cattle, you always, and they taught us this in driver's ed, you pull to the curb and let them barrel through. And when they came through and they were going faster than you, you could feel the whole car shaking. I remember cars didn't have air conditioning. Homes didn't have air conditioning. We went to school, there was no air conditioning. We'd make our paper fans and fan ourselves in the heat of the day. I miss those days. I'm not overly happy with the way things are going now. Not happy at all. I'm glad that I grew up in a simpler time. I had a family structure in my early years until my parents got a divorce. So, if nothing else, I think my first eye-opener of the political and maneuvering that people did when the church pulled what they did with Father Hill. The people who put the most money in the church. And then I saw all the political play and stuff, and I walked. I said, I believe in God. I'm not walking away from God. But no. That was my eye opener. And I noticed it was going around everywhere, and I grew a mouth. I was telling everybody, fuck off. I was just so mad with the world and everything. I was seeing how it was all manipulated, what they told me growing up. And I could see the wrong in it. I remember when we had a welfare family from one town was moved into our neighborhood. Now, her husband beat her up, but after getting to know her and her children, I could see why he beat her up. That's a horrible thing to say, but anyway. The town knew that they were going to have to become the fathers to those children because she had male children. They needed a father image. So the fathers of the neighborhood decided that they would help, you know. So if the child did something, they would talk to him and say, you're not supposed to do this and that and that. And this woman came out and told me, you leave my children alone. They're mine. You don't tell them what to do, what not to do. But she was never home. And then what she do? She calls her husband, he comes there, and the next thing we know, there's fights. But because of what she said about her sons, don't do this, talk to my sons, or correct them. I mean, they didn't hit them, they were just talking to them. The sons of the neighborhood, in other words, the children, the male children of the fathers, started acting up in the neighborhood, saying, oh, I can do this and I can do that, man. It was bad. The council got rid of her, and the family structure came back. I mean, the boys thought, well, I'm a man, I'm a male. You can't tell me what to do, Dad, and everything else. We heard a lot of crying. A lot of the boys got whipped and put in their place. But you only need one bad apple is what I'm talking about. But I do miss the stability of that time and quiet. Fathers weren't burnt out. They had time for their children. So there was a security there. There weren't any latchkey children. Their parents were home. But when welfare started coming into the neighborhood, because other towns asked us to take them in because they were trying to get them away from the father because of the violence, things started changing. Trouble started. A lot of trouble. And if you were a troubled teen, your parents could sign you into the draft, into the service, to get your head together. And when you came out, chances of you being a criminal was a lot less because you understood life and death. But your life was put on the line, and you had to trust your fellow soldiers that they were going to look after your back. So you couldn't be, you know, a criminal and think of yourself. You had to think as a unit, and then they learned the hard way. That's how a country stands together. We all knew our place. I knew my place. I was a little girl. I was my parents' daughter. I knew where I belonged. I don't know how it is outside, in other states in the United States, but that's how our town got turned upside down, and now they have a big drug in my lifetime. Now we're talking in my lifetime. I'm 71, so just going back to the 50s and 60s. That town is drug infested. The neighborhood I grew up to is a mess. And yet that area where I had grown up was farmland, and they were building it up at that time. Let me get it. My can opener. I have sweet pickled relish here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to strain it in the strainer. That's it. It's dripping, just give it a little bit of time. I told you this is such an easy one. And this is the egg salad they used to make, which is interesting, isn't it? And you need mayonnaise. And I need to blow my nose. I remember the neighborhood so well that in the spring we would have acres, and it looked like a whole bunch of flowers as far as the eye could see. And you know what it was? Butterflies. Nothing but butterflies. I'm lucky if I see 3 or 4 now. This is in my lifetime. When I talk about my lifetime, I want you to be aware of just how much has changed. And imagine what it's going to be like if you're young now, what it's going to be like when you get older. Is there going to be a stability of the family? You know? Are children going to feel secure? Or father's going to be able to raise their sons properly? You know? This was an egg salad. This was like special when we had it because my mother didn't make egg salad like this, so this was a real treat. Yeah, this is my mayonnaise. today is just so different. I mean, I knew I would have to take home economics and everything else. The only thing I want to do is add salt to it. It's really flat without the salt. I'm using iodized salt on this one so I can get the salt flavor because you're going to need it for this dish. The mixture won't cover for it. And this is how you make one of the simplest egg salads I've ever made. Like I said, make a lot of different things different ways. I have cookbooks that they all make this dish, but they all do it differently with different flavors and different techniques. It comes out different. Okay. A very, very simple, quick, and easy, and I mean really easy, egg salad. Take care and have a great day today.